Thank you very much. I'd like to give you a warm welcome on behalf of the ICD, and it's certainly a pleasure to have you here. We're going to ask you a series of 5 questions based on the American elections and transatlantic relations. So my first 2 questions, first is on transatlantic relations. The relations between President or ex-President George W. Bush and Chirac and Schroeder administrations were not legendary for their success or closeness. Why do you think that these relations were not very good? And why does it currently seem as if the transatlantic relations are working very much better? Can Mr. Romney, if he is elected, improve the transatlantic relationship? And how might his policy differ from the President Obama policy or the President Obama administration's policy on transatlantic relations?
Well, that's a very good question. I always look forward, or try to, in this brief time, and I would say I think we have an opportunity now, whether it's either the next president is Mr. Romney or President Obama. I think they're both fine men, very intelligent men. So we have a presidential race between 2 outstanding individuals. But in terms of foreign policy, I think they very much come together. That's one of the phenomenons of, it's so hard to tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. It's almost like the British system where the labor and conservative guys debating, you really can't tell. In fact, frequently in American presidential campaigns, the Democrat will run to the right of the Republican in foreign policy the last month or 2. As I pointed out, President Kennedy ran to the right of Richard Nixon, and almost every Democratic candidate in the last 2 weeks will move to the right of so it's very hard to generalize about right, left, or Democrat, Republican. And but I think that right now with Germany and France and the United States, the 3 cited there, that we have a great opportunity. And I tend to think relations have been better than generally acknowledged, and I think we're getting along pretty well. I do think that Germany probably feels it's struggling for identity, just as we're struggling for identity. We have asked Germany not to have a large military after the last war, and I know that some German troops were killed for the first time in just recently, and I just heard a speech by our former national security advisor who said that this was a historic thing because they were the first German soldiers killed since the end of World War II. And but I don't see big problems between Germany, France, and the United States. I think we're all on the same page. We all are a little proud and we're a little maybe insensitive, and we have this national slogan or that. But we do like French fries in Washington, and we do like Germany, and we like England and Italy and lots of Poland and all sorts of places, and Israel. So I think we're in for a good period.
I hope so. My next question is on U.S. and Russian relations.
Okay. And by the way, the thing about French fries is because when Ambassador David Luiz was there in the time of the Iraq War, there was a motion in Congress or somewhere to stop calling French fries because we were mad at France for a few days. But that's where that came from. Okay, but in any event, now we're talking about
Russia.
Russia.
Question.
Well, I think we also have an opportunity there. The Russians we're on the different side in Syria. And now that's one thing I always tell students, take a look at the interests of countries. Countries don't have friends, but they have interests. In Syria, why is China and Russia on the other side? Well, they're really not on the other side. They're not doing anything, but they're more or less on the other side. And I know that Kofi Annan resigned, but I would criticize him a little bit. He didn't have a plan. He didn't give a plan.
So the 6-point plan, you
Yeah,
consider was not a real plan?
Well, I really didn't. His 6 points, none of them were, he didn't say if we were going to invade or whatever, but maybe I mean, everybody's got a plan. But why didn't he go to the great powers individually and ask them? Because he just seems to have abandoned that. they weren't necessarily turned down, were they? So that was my concern.
Oh, I understand your thesis.
Okay, okay.
So can we point to the third question, Danielle?
Yeah, so I would like to ask you about US-Chinese relations. And given the economic dominance of China and the fact that it's becoming more and more influential at a rapid rate, and this is affecting the United States, but in fact the whole world, many critics of Obama have suggested that he didn't handle this relationship in the best interests of the United States. I'm not sure whether you agree with that or not, but if Mr. Romney were to win the election, do you think he could approach this relationship in a better manner than President Obama?
Well, I'm very much in disagreement with President Obama on one point, but Mr. Romney agreed with him, so they're both in the same. And that is, we have stationed troops in Australia for the first time. We're having a base in Australia. I think that unnecessarily provokes China, and unnecessarily so. There's a book by Basevich at the University of Massachusetts. He talks about endless war. We seem to be involved in these endless small wars. And I had hoped that President Obama would take us away from that. But stationing troops in Australia, you know, it didn't seem to make much publicity here, but it's the old story. Eisenhower stationed troops in Vietnam. Kennedy increased troops there. We keep sending troops to these different countries. And once they're there, they're very hard to get out. And it's very expensive to our taxpayers. And Australia's cutting its own defense budget. So I think that we should not provoke China. I don't think China wants a war. It wants to trade. But some of our friends over in the Pentagon, they want to go from one war to another. And I'm very disappointed in President Obama's decision. I think that historically that will go down as another start of some conflict somewhere in Asia. Those stationing our troops there, they're just going there now. And this is a mistake. But anyway, I hope we don't unnecessarily provoke China.
Okay, thank you. Check.
Mr. Senator, I would like to pose a couple of questions in relation to the Arab world. So, Iran and the Israeli-Palestinian crisis seem to be of particular interest to presidential candidate Mr. Romney. After 4 years of an almost standstill, do you think that President Obama is doing a good job in managing the situation? And also, would you like to comment on Mr. Romney's visit to Israel and Palestine?
Well, I think that it's good that that he went there and is trying to learn more about it. And I know that I believe President Obama has been there. I think their positions are almost identical on Israel at the end of the day. I wish both of them would be more for a Palestinian state. That doesn't mean we can't support Israel, but I think that the long-term solution will involve a Palestinian state. And I don't hear either Mr. Obama nor Mr. Romney talking about that enough. So, but they have better information than I do. I'm not necessarily criticizing them, but their positions are almost identical as far as I can tell.
Thank you.
So what about the issue of Iran in the region?
Iran in the region. Well, you know, there's just been an article, a very challenging article in Foreign Policy, saying that we should give Iran the bomb, let them have the bomb, because that would stabilize. We'd have Israel with the bomb, presumably, and Iran. And this thought is emerging. Now, this is the Pentagon thinking again. The Pentagon supported Pakistan getting a bomb. Many would dispute that, but they said, well, if Pakistan has a bomb, that'll offset China, and it'll offset India, and it'll stabilize. That's the way these guys talk about this stuff. I don't agree with these theories, but in the last issue of Foreign Policy, the publication of the Council on Foreign Relations, of which I'm a member, they had a major article by a very respected political scientist saying that we could settle the region down by letting Iran have the bomb. So that's new thinking that has come into this. I don't think that we should tell Israel that we would back them up if they just make an attack, unless there's a lot of consultation before. And I don't think they will do that. But I just hope that that region settles down, because Iran could be such a great ally of the United States and trading partner.
Thank you. Katie?
My final question, it's on the role cultural diplomacy can play for the U.S. abroad.
On the what?
The role cultural diplomacy
Okay,
can play.
good.
And in 2009, President Obama named you to the U.S. Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. And do you think that cultural diplomacy can play a role in improving the image that Americans have overseas?
Yes, I believe that cultural diplomacy is the way to go. There's a fellow who's written a book on cultural diplomacy. Of course, you folks write the book here at this institute, so I thank you very much. But John Lenskowski has written a new book. He's the head of a certain school in Washington, D.C. that has a name similar to yours. His is the Institute for International Politics, and this is the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. It seems to me that things like the Peace Corps, like exchange of scholars, finding areas of common agreement, having tourists is even part of cultural diplomacy, I suppose, is very important. And we need to emphasize people talking directly to each other, people to people, as much as possible, such as you do here, which is a great, this institute is an example of that. Now there's a limit to that, because then when countries just can't agree, they seem to find a solution in war or talking about war. And I hope we shift more to cultural diplomacy. I am very honored to serve on the U.S. Commission for Cultural Diplomacy for American Heritage Abroad, which works on certain issues with the State Department in terms of encouraging communications, and where there are prejudices or where there are acts carried out that we can object to it early. For example, there have been cemeteries desecrated in certain countries of Muslim people, of Jewish people, and of Christian people. That's the kind of thing that by objecting to that sort of thing early, we can take steps through cultural diplomacy to try to head off long-term problems. Still, countries, as Clausewitz says, the final resolution has to be war. I hope not, but hopefully we can have more cultural diplomacy, and this institute is helping that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Senator Larry Pressler, on behalf of the ICD, I would like to thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.